two-year note yields went from 190 to 166 in the blink of an eye.
On the NASDAQ, everything and more has been completely wiped out.
It was the worst day on Wall Street since the crash of 1987.
The stock market crash of 2008 was supposed to be a wake-up call. A financial meltdown so catastrophic that it threatened to collapse the entire global economy. Governments and central banks stepped in, claiming to save the system. But over 15 years later, one question remains. Did we truly recover, or did we just paper over the cracks? Let's start with the aftermath. When Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy in September 2008, it wasn't just a bank that failed. It was a global system built on excessive risk, opaque financial instruments, and unchecked greed. The stock market plummeted, millions of jobs were lost, and trillions of dollars in wealth vanished overnight. Governments and central banks scrambled to contain the fallout. Massive bailouts were handed to financial institutions deemed too big to fail. In the United States, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or TARP, poured $700 billion into propping up the banks. Around the world, central banks slashed interest rates to near zero levels and unleashed unprecedented waves of quantitative easing, injecting liquidity into the markets. On the surface, it worked. The financial system was stabilized, and by 2009, markets began to recover. But beneath this facade, the seeds of a new set of problems were already being sown. The headlines touted recovery, but for most people, it didn't feel like one. In order to understand this, we must look at three key reasons. First, wage stagnation. While asset prices soared, median incomes barely budged. The vast majority of the economic gains since 2008 have gone to the top 1%, while middle and lower income households have struggled to keep up with rising costs of living. Second, housing affordability. The housing market rebounded, but not in a way that helped ordinary people. Institutional investors snapped up properties, driving prices sky high. Today, millions of people are locked out of home ownership, stuck in a cycle of rising rents and limited options. And third, corporate debt. With interest rates at historic lows, companies borrowed heavily. But instead of using that debt to invest in innovation or expansion, much of it was funneled into stock buybacks, artificially inflating share prices while leaving businesses more vulnerable to future downturns. In short, the so-called recovery was uneven and unsustainable, setting the stage for new crises down the road.